Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine, and today we're going to be talking about one of our favorite topics, compliance. With us is Tom Kline of Vantage Point. Tom, welcome back to the Roundtable.
Sarah, always great to see you. Last time I think I saw you was in New York, right?
That's right. It was an incredible event, and I'm so excited to be able to expand on the topic that we were discussing in New York around risk and compliance from the inside of the dealership. Who do we have with us today, Tom?
So we have Paul Elliott and Matt Pope from the Insurance Office of America Dealer Practice Group. Say hello, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And we have Mike and Taylor Watley from Mike Watley Honda in Brookhaven, Mississippi. So good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Great to have everyone here.
Thank you for having us.
Glad to be here.
Okay. So I'm going to take it away here. The first question is for Mike and then Taylor. What's the one compliance issue that keeps you up at night? The one that you just want to make sure that you're going to take care of and you're going to see to it that it gets done. Any particular thoughts on that, Mike?
Well, I guess opening emails sometimes is something that drives me crazy. They just open up any email that they get, and they don't take time to think about what they're opening.
You're talking about employees opening spam emails that may result in cyber problems?
Correct.
Okay. And so then I'm gonna the follow-up question for Paul and Matt, which is this is kind of an obvious one. Where do most dealers misunderstand their coverage or expect they're covered when they might not be? So in the instances Mike's talking about, let's start with Matt. What insurance, if there's a problem, what insurance would cover that?
Well, depending on what the situation is, it could be a couple different types of insurance that would respond. If there is some sort of a phishing attempt that's made, there could be coverage that is both the old crime policy and then, of course, the current cyber coverage. It depends on the type of. It really depends on what claim is formed out of that circumstance. But as much as anything, the ability to have the best practices in place to do the internal phishing testing with your employees to make sure that they understand, what they're opening can be truly very detrimental to, the operation of the dealership, not just from a phishing attempt, but also, releasing some vicious or malicious code within their computer systems.
Mike, you're not alone that dealers fear this problem because it can shut down operations. And I think that's what you're referring to, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, they come in and they can halter a lot of revenue coming in real quick, and stop operations. But we are using Comply Auto as our third party at this time, and they're doing a great job keeping us in compliance on our looking at our emails. They're testing us, they're checking us, and then we're testing back out of it if we inadvertently click on something that could have contaminated our files. So that's a peace of mind I have that now, which we didn't have 2 years ago. So.
Mm-hmm. And Taylor, has Mike been clear about what your marching orders are on these items?
Very straightforward. We always try to cover any liability. That's at the forefront of everything. So just having these trainings, documentation in place, and then retrainings in place for anyone that may fall through the cracks. But they're getting very creative nowadays, and they look more and more and more legitimate. So you just got to continue. It's a continuous learning thing of how to pick them apart, and we're thankful to have a partner to help us with that.
Yep, the bad guys are always going to be a step of the good guys in this particular case, which is very difficult. Paul, anything to add to that?
I would just add that many cyber liability carriers have resources and tools to assist with, taking a peek under the hood, if you will, of dealers' websites, and basically they go in and they can produce a report that will tell you where you're performing well, green light if you will, a yellow light maybe where there's some places you need to improve, and then they can produce some red lights, some things that you need to fix immediately. In addition, there are many resources for phishing campaigns, things of that nature to test your employees. In this specific case of opening emails that may be phishing attempts. So a lot of resources out there, and I would just encourage people to reach out to, maybe their state association, their cyber liability carrier, and see what's available.
And Mike and Taylor, back to you on this question. What internal controls or policies do you have about making sure the bad guys aren't asking you to wire money and send monies to places where they shouldn't go?
So bank controls again, that's another area that obviously every dealer has issues with today with bank fraud and wiring and that kind of stuff. So what we do is we basically split accounts, and we don't wire anything out of our main accounts. We wire anything coming in and out. It's going to go out of a separate account, which holds a lot less money in it. So, but besides that, I'll let you speak on what else we're doing.
I mean, on that front, it's just the regular checks and balances in place. There's not too many hands in the pot. Anything going out has to have authorization, usually a cosign by either Mike or myself. I can't think of the last wire we had go out.
Right.
It's not something that frequents the store. Obviously, wires in are a different, dynamic with the sales transactions we do, but we do make sure we do the regulatory. We contact the banks. We confirm those things before we proceed forward with the transaction.
There's also tools that the banks have given us that we signed up for, where we'll get an alert when something looks a little funny, and it's similar to what we're doing with our emails and our phishing and the training that we're doing on that, where we'll go in with Comply Auto. They'll go in and they'll test us. They'll just try to get us to go and click on an email. All right.
Mm-hmm.
If you do, you're going to go back through recurrent. You're going to have to go through recurrent training again.
That's right.
Right. And is that training documented?
Oh, absolutely. And it's digitally documented.
There's a portal that keeps the track of your percentages across the employees that are in-house, policies signed off on, remedial training if needed, and there's alerts for all those things. Even as far down to if there's any PPI that makes it out on, or PII that makes it out on an email, it is flagged, and we were able to go ahead and have that conversation with the person.
Terrific. And the word here is vigilance. And I was going through literally 2 days ago, I was going through my credit card statement, and there was a charge from T-Mobile for $16.50, and I don't have T-Mobile. And so I had to change credit card numbers, and off you go. Hadn't lost my card. I don't know where it was exposed, but constant vigilance on this topic is important. Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Can I interject one thing? And the reason the dealerships are such a target-rich environment for this type of circumstances, because, as Taylor was mentioning, they have both personally identifiable information. They also have personal credit information. And then with their employees, if they have a health insurance plan, there's also personal health insurance information that can be contained in their systems. So you've got all three of the pieces that can be, some bad guy can try to go after, are sitting right there within the dealership.
Yeah, if you're a bad guy and you're watching, Matt just gave you the map to the kingdom. All car dealerships are rich with data. If that wasn't a known fact,
I think they all know all too well, unfortunately. But it does, it always amazes me. There are still a lot of folks burying their head in the sand about this kind of stuff, and that's the scariest part of it all. And as I've mentioned before, Paul and I try to be as forthcoming with information about the things that really can disrupt the operation of your business. And it is the stuff like this that really causes the biggest headaches.
Sure.
And if you throw the credit card processing agreement in there with it, those are some of the biggest challenges that dealerships maintain to try to make sure that they're keeping things flowing and safe. So,
okay, Paul. Next question's for you. What's the most frequent facepalm moment you've had in reviewing a dealer's risk setup?
So, what I would tell you is most recently false pretense coverage. So, the value of automobiles has significantly increased, over 4 or 5 years ago, and in many policies we'll see, um, maybe false pretense at $100,000. And I mean, look, there are a lot of cars that are less than 100,000, but now there are a lot of trucks, SUVs, vans, different things that are well over that number, and we just continue to see people underinsured in that coverage.
I mean, buyer beware. I had a independent dealership call me, and they said, "Hey, we got scammed out of $170,000. We paid off 3 vehicles in 3 different states, and we didn't get the titles back, and we didn't get anything back." And I said, "Well, send me your insurance policy. Let me take a look at it." And so I took a look at the insurance policy, and in their particular case, they had zero false pretense coverage. It was false pretense coverage was completely excluded from their policy, so they had absolutely nothing to make a claim on. And I asked this particular independent dealer, I said, "Well, how much did you pay for this policy?" And I think they told me 10 grand. And so, if you're interested in coverage and you want to get coverage, then you need to make sure that you're looking at not only the limits but the sub limits too, right? Um, Very important. Okay, back to Mike and Taylor. What's something you used to do in your store that you realized was a compliance landmine waiting to explode, but now you feel like you've got it under control?
I'll take this one. In the past, everything was paper documentation, quick little picture you could send out. Let's say your finalized papers on what we're going to close on a sales price. So we close deals a little bit differently. We don't Foursquare. We close them on sales price. So we have a nice printed out page with that information on it. It features the vehicle's picture, the customer's information, etc. Prior to all these compliance guidelines that came out, it was frowned upon, but it wasn't that big of an issue. Now we've moved to having fully encrypted documents being sent directly to the customer. So, Mr. Tom, if we were doing business, I would have an encrypted link sent to you. You would then type in your first last name just to verify that it's going to the appropriate person. Once that checks out with the system, it allows you to view the encrypted document, which would be that closing doc. And then it would be there to reside for about 7 days. Unless you saved it on your computer or your phone or computer, it would then be stored in the cloud and not on any physical piece of property within the store or a personal cell phone, to eliminate that just getting out the dealership. So that's one thing for sure that when you look back in the past and it's like, okay, now we have the ability to do this and to do it the right way. So that's one thing for sure.
Yep.
That's a good one. So that you're talking about what's part of the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, and being compliant with GLBA, of which the FTC in the past month, by the way, just published new Q&A for the GLBA. And there's lots of speculation as to why they published that, but I'll give you my opinion. It's because they're going to start enforcing it. I mean, they didn't just come up with doing it. They have not, interestingly, in their actions against dealers over the past 24 months, they have not enforced it or made it part of their regulatory even inquiry when they're talking to dealers. So I believe that you will hear and see more about GLBA in the coming year and years, and I think that's the only reason that they did that. Paul, any further comment on that?
I was going to go back. You said, facepalm. We continue to see dealers share information with us that is sensitive. And we here, so for example, we work with employee list.
Right.
So dealers have to send us employee list that has a lot of information on it. Sometimes dealer includes social security numbers on that information, which
Sure.
it's not good. So,
No bueno.
honestly, I have been resistant to technology in our process. And at the first of the year, I said, I've got to embrace this. And we've started using a program where all the data we share with the dealer and with our carriers, everything's encrypted now. So data is protected. And so one thing I would say is to a dealer, if you're sharing information with anyone, and think about, as Matt mentioned, an employee benefit plan, you're sharing probably payroll, if disability is involved, you're
Sure.
sharing lots of personal data, and you need to make sure when you're doing that, you're sharing it where it's encrypted and it's protected.
Of course. Good point. Matt, to you, the next one.
Mhm.
If you could insert yourself into the dealership's decision-making process early, where would it be and why?
Is this in regards to a risk management question or just anything about operations?
This is in regards to a risk management question, an insurance renewal question,
Okay.
anything that you get your hands into.
Well, I think Taylor brought up one of the biggest areas that we see both on the PNC side from the standpoint of what kind of information are you gathering, how is it being disseminated back to the customer and then back to the dealership, but also it could be an F&I deal jacket, right? It's what are the policies and procedures that are in place to protect that information? Who has access to it? Where is it going when it is, once it is completed? Is it are we still utilizing any form of paper, in that system? And then trying to come up with the best practices needed to streamline that whole process, make sure that things are passed along securely and encrypted, but at the same time not handcuffing the dealer to do business. Paul had mentioned us using this system that we have to try to make sure we we protect each other from passing information securely. And one of the things we've heard from numerous dealers that they've used it, they're like, we love this. It gives us a roadmap of what we have to supply, but it gives us a checklist of what we use. But it's a secure portal back and forth, and it just simplifies the process rather than them trying to scan in something, attach it to an email. It just makes the whole process a whole lot simpler and secured. But I would say just making sure that the the gathering, you know, the gathering and processing of information, and then finally the control of that information and where it goes is probably one of the greatest headaches a dealer can have. And we don't make it easy on the dealer either from the standpoint of industry wide or government wide, right? The FTC Safeguards Rule. We're going to do it. We're not going to do it. We do this date. We change this date. It was going to be implemented here. It's not implemented there. We've made this so confusing, but we try to give them the best step-by-step practices they can put into their dealership and still sell cars. Of course, that's why they're here, and make sure that they're protected. And as I tell, all of our dealers, look, if you're doing things the right way and something goes wrong, that is a powerful roadmap that we can show if it comes to some form of litigation. If you're doing none of it and something goes wrong, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, that's the difference between what I call barbecued and not, right?
That's
I
right.
mean, if you don't have if you have a risk mitigation plan, if you have a customer management system, a compliance management system in place, and you're documenting things, you're never going to get it 100% right,
That's
and
right.
you're going to have somebody come in and do a complaint with the FTC, by the way, which is super easy to do. I did one the other day. They have radio buttons. In the first screen, it's do you have a problem with any of the following? And one of them is auto sales. You click the auto sales, it takes you to the next thing. And it says, what I don't remember, sales and service. And you click the next thing, and then you've got like 2 or 3 things to fill out, and off it goes. I mean, they've made it very easy to complain.
Yeah.
And so, and as you all have heard me say, you know, problems start on two legs. Problems start with customers and problems start with employees. So if you're handling those two areas of your risk, then for the most part, you're going to be fine. If a regulator or a lawyer walks in, you're always going to write a check for something, but you're not going to get barbecued. It's not going to be a 6-figure check. It'll be a 4-figure check or maybe a 5-figure check. And that leads, of course, to one of my favorite topics, which I'm going to throw to Paul. Then we're going to come back to Mike and Taylor. What kind of insurance may cover that kind of issue, Paul, that dealers are not availing themselves of?
Directors and officers coverage.
There you go. My favorite topic, directors and officers. Why don't you take a couple minutes and educate everybody on directors and officers insurance, why it's important?
So I'll start, Matt. I'll let you add any color that I miss. But I think one of the biggest things for directors and officers, one of the reasons dealers need it, is when there is alleged fraud, and the dealer receives notice or suit of alleged fraud. There's not an insurance policy that will cover that, except directors and officers coverage. Now, if the dealer committed fraud, there's nothing that will cover that. Okay.
Well,
But
hold on. Time out, Paul.
okay.
You're getting too tight. Now, dealer D&O insurance will cover a much broader swath. It's allegations, it's
Correct.
indictments, it's all kinds of broad things. And then if the dealer gets convicted of fraud, then it doesn't pay, but it does pay right up to that point.
That's right.
So you can still leverage the insurance to make sure that you have the coverage, right?
That's correct. D&O will defend you. That's the key point. There is defense. You do not have to go out and hire a lawyer on your own. You don't have to manage that on your own. The carrier will provide the defense and manage your defense for you. And that's peace of mind. Talking about not being able to sleep at night, that's something that if you need to purchase directors and officers coverage so you can sleep at night. It's that simple. Yep. And it's not very expensive for private companies. And if you're a publicly traded company, you need it the most. So, right. Matt, I'll let you add anything.
Now, I was going to say that, and Tom, we've discussed this with him before. The unfortunate part of it is that any attorney that's, got some sense is going to find a way to throw fraud into their complaint, because if you don't have any, obviously there's not going to be coverage in the policy itself, and if you don't have D&O, it's going to force people down the road to where they have to settle. So this gives you that extra layer of protection that you can defend yourself against the implication of fraud, and that's one of the only ways you can get it done.
Mike and Taylor, how do you feel about when you wake up in the morning, your feet hit the floor, you've got millions of dollars on the line every day because of the land, the building, the blue sky, the parts inventory, the used car inventory, all that stuff you own at cash. How do you feel about how you're covered, and what do you do internally to make sure that you're working on those things that you feel like you have exposure on?
Well, I can tell you, since signing up with Matt and Paul and their company, we sleep a lot better on my side. I can tell you that. Having competent folks that are come down, meet with you, talk to you, follow up with you, send you little tidbits of information that you need to know. This is what's going on. This is current in our industry. This is what you need to look out for. Their partner in making sure my risk is mitigated to the smallest amount possible. I feel like we have that with those guys. And I think every dealer needs to be comfortable with his package of insurance that he's taking. And just like you said, not a lot of them take D&O. It's crazy. Uninsured motorists, a lot of them don't take just simply because they don't want to make the mechanic rich. All right? When you can do it in a way that doesn't have to be exposed to those guys. They don't have to know. Okay. You can ask some inland marine for them. which will help them with their tools if something happens. But they don't need to know all this. They don't need to understand what we have. They need to have their own. So another thing I'll tell you too that sometimes is missed, and as a young dealer, I've been here 20 years, but in my first 7 years, when I started to buy my previous partners out, I'm sitting here, like you said, I'm worried. I'm worried to death at that time, okay, because I had nothing and I had everything pushed in. And then I've got the FAA coming in to my parts department. I'm a little town of 10,000 people in Southwest Mississippi and never thought this would ever happen. But I got the FAA inspector comes in and wants to see documentation for who shipped these seatbelt actuators, all right, and which are hazmat shipping. And they need to have a certification and a license on file for this person who had not worked there in 4 years. And if not, I got a sizable fine fixing to hit my desk. And I'm a young dealer, and I go in and I look and doing the things that I was taught to do. And I went back into the personnel file, and we had it, right? And thinking that they would probably get me again some other time. 5 years later, they came back. Stayed at a little small hotel at off the interstate here in town. And lo and behold, we had an ice storm that trapped him here for about 2 days. And he came in, and when he came in, I knew what he was here for. And I said, go get that OSHA file. And we brought it in. We had 2 guys certified. Okay, so just pull whichever ticket you want to pull up. We had 2 of them certified. So, and they were still here with us, and we still had the records. So that's very important too, that you maintain, all right, the required amount of time, all right, with these records, because they will come back and they will pick you to death.
They will. That is true. All right, we're in the last few minutes here, so kind of our rapid fire round, right, Sarah? So the first question for Mike and Taylor, what do you wish insurance agents better understood about the reality of dealer operations?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Again, I'm going to go back to what I just stated. Having guys that are experienced like Paul and Matt in the dealership operations is monumental. And of course, every year we get quoted by guys who don't have a clue about what we do. Right? These guys come to our meetings. They come to our associations. All right. They involve themselves with us, all right, and they have studied our industry. You don't take long talking to those folks to understand what you have. And once you talk to them, you understand those guys know what you're doing. They know what you're up against. And together you make a good team, all right, protecting this whole operation, and including theirs as well.
Okay. Taylor, anything to add to that?
I'll just kind of piggyback on it. Every state association meeting I go to, I see Mr. Paul there. I know I didn't see Matt there last time, but he was at another business meeting with other dealers. So it's the efforts that they put forth on their end from their company. Obviously, they do deal with auto dealers throughout the nation, but again, it's that partnership with the added value of this is what we see going on. And, we're doing the same thing, even though we're just, we're little fish in a small pond. We do see some things from time to time, and we share those with them as well. We're just trying to maintain that good partnership. So.
Okay, great. Matt, Paul, kind of final question here. What's changed in the risk landscape in the last 24 months that you feel like dealers still have not caught up with?
Go ahead, Matt.
I think as much as anything, there's probably a little bit of a lag in between the dealership groups are starting to require more inventory again. We're starting to get back into where we've got more inventory on the ground than we did during the COVID years. And I think what's been interesting from our standpoint is as that started to happen, some of the major carriers that are out there are starting to come back in, and they really are changing a lot of the terms and conditions that are available for like the open lot policy. We see a lot higher theft deductibles now than we've ever seen before. We see a lot of strange restrictions on the ability to use certain vehicles can't be used as demo vehicles. And mind you, you have to understand, we insure dealerships that are Honda dealerships, and we insure a Ferrari and a Lamborghini dealership. So we kind of see a very wide swath of the industry, but there are some restrictions that have come down, and of course that's all because vehicles are getting more expensive. I mean,
Right.
they're particularly in areas that have a high theft situation, where certain cars, like a certain type of Cadillac, for instance, may have a really high theft in a certain area. We've seen some 20 and 30% theft deductibles put on policies for those type of vehicles. So that's a
Yeah.
whole lot different than a couple of years ago when it was just $2,500.
Right. Right. Paul, final comment.
So a couple of things. I think we're fortunate enough to partner with Taylor and Mike. Um, I would say to dealers that's one thing. View your broker as a partner. They have a lot to offer. Ask for the resources they have available to you. I think it's our job to mitigate the dealer's risk and to educate the dealer on their risk, because there are, no pun intended, moving parts in the dealership all the time. And I think it's our job to educate them on their risk so they can sell cars, so they can service their customers in the parts department. They don't have to worry about their risk being mitigated. And then the last thing I'll say is, we've talked a lot about compliance today. If I could say anything to a dealer, no matter who you're working with, whoever your compliance partner is, have them provide a stewardship report.
That's right.
And you hand that report to your broker, and you direct your broker to hand it to the insurance carriers, so they know you're doing things the right way to drive rate down. I mean, it is, and it's very difficult for us sometimes to get that information, but more information is really an arrow in the quiver to help you get better outcomes with your risk
100%.
management plan.
100%. Mike, Taylor, final comments.
Yeah, I just have to piggyback on that, and I got to tell you, it's so important to be hooked up with the right insurance company, guys that you trust, and like I said before, as a partner. There's a lot of things going on. When the stock market's doing great, insurance companies are a little easier on you, man. But when the stock market's going bad, they're socking it to you. And things change constantly. And I've seen it change up and down over the last 20 years, all right? And that's just since I've been at this location, but I've been in the car business for about 40 years. So I've seen quite a bit of change in the insurance business. It continues to evolve, just like the fraud, the theft continue to evolve. We have to continue to stay on top of it and protect our investments. We appreciate that partnership that helps us protect that investment. So that I'll end on that.
Okay, very good. Sarah, back to you.
Tom, what a panel today, and thank you for assembling this incredible group of people. I want to thank, on behalf of Ted Ings, Taylor, Mike, Matthew, and Paul for joining us today on this panel. Stay tuned, everyone. We've got more exciting segments coming up next at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.